All right, guys, I'm going to go over the Unit 1 study guide with you today. So number 1 says find the solution. This is order of operations, so we want to remember PEMDAS. We take out the E because we don't use exponents in 5th grade, but we do use the rest of the letters, and the P stands for parentheses, and we also call them grouping symbols. M is multiplication, D is division, A is addition, and S is subtraction. And we know that multiplication and division happen on the same level, but we work from from left to right if you have both, and the same thing for addition and subtraction. So now that we have that little note written down, we know that we start with the grouping symbols here. 2 plus 3 is 5, and then I'm going to bring down the rest of my problem. And now I have multiplication and I have subtraction, so I know that I have to do the multiplication next. And 6 times 5 is 30. I'm going to bring down the minus 7, and 30 minus 7 is 23. So my answer is 23. All right, next one. So number 2 is also an order of operations problem. So we're going to look back at PEMDAS. This is going to help us with this one as well. So here we have 2 sets of grouping symbols. We have parentheses and we have brackets. When we have 2 sets of grouping symbols, we know we have to work from the inside out. So we're going to work in the parentheses first, bring the whole problem down, and then do the brackets. So I'll show you how that's done. So 6 minus 1 is 5. So I'm going to bring down the bracket on this side. On this side, I have a 5 and a multiplication sign. Okay, so you see I brought down the bracket, the 5, the multiplication sign, and the other bracket, and then the 6 minus 1 is the 5 there. So then I'm going to bring down the add 8. Now I know I have brackets, so this is my next step. 5 times 5 is 25, and you add 8. 25 plus 8 is 33. So my answer is 33. Okay, let's move on to number 3. All right, so we have a few multiplication problems in this study guide. So you're allowed to do whatever method you want, box method, partial products. For this one, I'm going to start with partial products. And for the next one, I will do box method. So let's start with partial products. So my first step is going to be 9 times 4. And that's 36. Then 9 times 30. And that's 270. Then I move over to the 2, and the 2 is in the tens place, so that's 20 times 4. And that's 80. And 20 times 30 is 600. All right, so now all we have to do is add those numbers up. Get 6, 7 and 3 is 10, plus 8 is 18. And 6 plus 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So my answer is 986. Okay, now on to number 4. So for number 4, it looks confusing at first, but really all they're asking you is part of Sam's solution for 38 times 81 is shown below. It's just like partial products, and we're just missing the 4th step. So the question is asking you, which step should Sam do next? So all you have to do really is set up this problem as if it were partial products and write out each of your steps and then figure out which one is missing. So we know 1 times 8 is the first step, and then 1 times 30, and then 80 times 8, and 80 times 30. So now you really don't need to solve the problem. All you have to do is figure out which step Sam still needs to do. So I see that 30 times 80 has already been done, 30 times 1 has already been done, and 8 times 80 has already been done. So I know that the only step left for Sam to do is 1 times 8, and that is letter C. All right, Number 5, so now we have 41 times 18. I am going to do this one using box method. So just draw out my box. And I'm going to put 41 along the top, 40 and 1, and then 18, 10, and 8 along the side. 10 times 40 is 400. 10 times 1 is 10. 40 times 8 is 320. And 8 times 1 is 8. So now I just need to line those up correctly. And then add. My answer is 738. Okay, number 6. Which product is greater than 500 times 40? Select the 2 correct answers. Make sure you're always looking at how many answers there are, because you will see that on the test. So I know that 500 times 40 is 5 times 4 is 20. And then I have 1, 2, 3 zeros to add. So I know the answer is 20,000. So what you can do is just go through each one of these answer selections and find out what the product is. And then you can figure out which ones are going to be more than 20,000. All right, so 6 times 3 is 18. And then you add 1, 2, 3 zeros. That's 18,000. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 3 zeros. 4 times 5 is 20, and add 3 zeros. And then 3 times 4 is 12, add 3 zeros. So 30,000 is definitely an answer because that is greater than 500 times 40. However, you see that letter C is 20,000 as well. So on the test, you will not have a problem like this where one of the answers is equal to the original problem. You will have 2 answers that are clearly higher than 20,000, but for this problem, the correct answer would be C. So 20,000 isn't necessarily greater than 20,000, but it is equal to. And there are no other answers that would fit. 18,000 is too small, 12,000 is too small. So these 2 are the best 2 answers. Okay. All right, number 7 is another multiplication problem. So I'm going to go back to partial products for this one. 52 times 98. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 50 is 400. 8 times 5 is 40, add a 0. 90 times 2 is 180. And 90 times 50. 9 times 5 is 45, add 2 zeros. And now I just add them up. 6, 9, 10, carry the 1, 4 plus 1 is 5. So my answer is 5,096. Okay. Number 8, an apple orchard has 966 trees. There are 42 rows, each with the same number of trees. How many trees are in each row? So this is obviously a division problem. We're dividing a large number, 966 trees, into 42 rows. So I'm going to set up my division problem. And I'm going to divide with multiples. So I'm going to put my backwards L. And I know that 42 times 10 is going to be 420. So I know that's less than 966. So that works. I'm going to put a 10 on the outside. 42 times 10 again is 420. So now I'm going to subtract. I get 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. And 9 minus 4 is 5. So I can see here that I can actually fit 42 in another 10 times. So I'm going to put a 10 on the outside. 42 times 10 is 420. I'm going to subtract, and I get 126. So at this point, I know that 42 can't go into 126 another 10 times, but off to the side, I can do a little bit of trial and error math. I'm going to try, I know that 42 doubled is going to be around 80, so that's a little too small. I'm going to try going in 3 times. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 4 is 12. So that's exactly 126. So I know that 42 can go in 3 times. 42 times 3 is 126. Subtract, and I get 0. So no remainder. So now I just have to add up my outside numbers. 10 plus 10 plus 3 is 23. So that means that my answer is A. Okay. Number 9, Molly is setting up tables for a wedding reception. Each table seats 14 people. What is the fewest number of tables Molly needs to set up for 135 people? So again, we're taking a large number, 135 people total, and we want to split it into 14 people at each table. So it's another division problem. So 135 is getting split into 14. So I'm going to put my backwards L, and I noticed that 14 times 10 would be 140, so that's going to be too big. So I'm going to start with 9, and then off to the side I'm going to do some multiplication. 9 times 4 is 36, and 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12, so that's 126. That fits into 135, so that's perfect. Now I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 6, I can't do that, so I have to borrow, make that a 2, and turn that into a 15. Now 15 minus 6 is 9, and 14 can't go into 9, so I know that I'm finished with my problem. My answer is 9, remainder 9, because 9 was what I had left over. But we have to look back at what the problem is asking. What is the fewest number of tables Molly needs to set up for 135 people? This means that 9 tables could be set up with 14 people, but then there will be 9 people left over. We can't leave them without a table, so we actually have to round up to 10 tables, or else not everyone would have a seat. So the answer is 10 tables. Remember, if I go too fast or if you don't understand one the first time, you can always rewind and go back. Okay, so let's move on to number 10. Longwood Gardens buys 4,500 flower bulbs. If 40 bulbs can be planted in each flower bed, how many flower beds are needed to plant all the bulbs? So here we have division again, 4,500 bulbs and 40 in each flower bed. So we're going to divide 4,500 into 40 bulbs per bed. So this is a large number, 4,500. If I were to do 40 times 10, I would only get 400, and that would take me a really long time since 4,000 is such a large number. So I can bump up my number a bit here to make it even bigger. I'm going to try 100. And the reason I did that is because I know that 4 times 1 is 4, and then there's 3 zeros to add on. So my answer would be 4,000. So now all I have to do is subtract. I can see that 4,500 minus 4,000 is going to give me a remainder of 500. Now I have 500, and 40 can definitely go into 500, and I know it can go in 10 times, because 40 times 10 is 400. So now I have 100 left over. 40 can go into 100 2 times, because 40 times 2 is 80. So I subtract, and I get 20. 40 cannot fit into 20, so we know that 20 is our remainder. I'm going to circle my outside numbers and then add them up. 100 plus 10 plus 2 is 112, but I have a remainder of 20. So we have to look back at what the question is asking us. If 40 bulbs can be planted in each flower bed, how many flower beds are needed to plant all the bulbs? So in this case, we need 112 flower beds to plant, for each of them to have 40 bulbs, but then we'd have 20 bulbs left over. If they want to plant all the bulbs, then we have to round this up to 113. Okay, so let's go down to 11. There are 164 donuts being placed into boxes. Each box will hold a dozen donuts. A dozen is equal to 12. So if each box holds a dozen donuts, they want to know how many boxes will be filled and how many donuts will be left over. So we're taking the total number of donuts, 164, and we're dividing it into 12 because that is how many donuts will fit into each box. So 12 can go into 164 10 times. 12 times 10 is 120, and we're subtracting. 4 minus 0 is 4, 6 minus 2 is 4, and 1 minus 1 is 0, so I have 44 left. I know off the top of my head that 12 times 4 is 48, so it won't fit in 4 times, but I will try 3 times. 12 times 3 is 36. I subtract, and I get 8. 12 cannot fit into 8, so I know this is my remainder. And I add up my outside numbers. I have 13 with the remaining 8. So my answer is B, 13 boxes filled and 8 donuts left over. Okay, so here we have a straight up division problem. Solve 672 divided by 21. So I'm going to set it up and do the same thing I've been doing. I'm going to put my backwards L, and then I'm going to start with 10. 21 times 10 is 210. I'm going to subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2, 7 minus 1 is 6, and 6 minus 2 is 4. So I'm going to do the same thing again. 21 times 10 is 210. Subtract. 2 minus 0 is 2, 6 minus 1 is 5, and 4 minus 2 is 2. So now I can actually fit 21 in another 10 times. So 21 times 10 is 210. 2 minus 0 is 2, 5 minus 1 is 4, and 2 minus 2 is 0. So now I have 42 left. I can tell by looking at 21 that if I double both of these numbers, I would get 42. 2 doubled is 4, and 1 doubled is 2. So 42, that means 21 can go into 42 2 times, and it equals 42. So I have no remainder, and I just have to add up my outside numbers. 10, 10, 10 is 30, plus 2 is 32. My answer is 32. Okay. All right, so number 13, this again is just like the one we did before with Sam, where all you have to do is really set up the problem as if you were doing partial products and then figure out which step that the student has not done yet. So 24 times 72. First I would do 2 times 4. Then I would do 2 times 20. Then I would move over to the 7 and do 70 times 4. And 70 times 20. And then just look over here and see which ones they've done already. 20 times 70 has been done. 20 times 2 has been done. And 4 times 70 has been done. So the only one left is 2 times 4, and that is letter C. All right, number 14. This is another order of operations problem. So we know that we do our grouping symbols first. We have parentheses here, so that is always the first step. 6 plus 3 is 9. And then the most important part is bringing down the entire problem exactly like you see it. So 32, subtraction sign, division sign, 3 plus 5. Okay, perfect. So now we have subtraction, division, and addition. And I know, based on PEMDAS, that I need to do division next. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. 32, subtraction sign, and plus 5. Now I have subtraction and addition, which we know happen at the same level, but we always work left to right. 32 minus 3 is going to be 29. And then I'm going to bring down my last part. And 29 plus 5 is 34. So the answer is 34. All right, last problem. All right, don't be intimidated by this problem. It's long and it looks complicated, but it's actually quite easy. Stephen, Frankie, and Seth and Ryan are playing a card game. Each hand is made up of 4 numbers and 3 symbols. The winner is the person who uses the cards to make the expression with the greatest solution. The first hand consists of the following cards. Which boy's expression has the greatest solution? Basically, all they're asking you is which boy won the game, which boy came up with a solution, which boy came up with an expression that gave the greatest solution. So all you have to do is solve each one individually. So I'm going to start with Stephen. And I'm making sure that I copy the problem right, because if I don't copy a part of it right, I'm never going to be able to solve the problem correctly. So I have 2 sets of parentheses. One is multiplication. I'm going to start with that one. And 24 times 8, I'm going to have to do that off to the side because I don't know that off the top of my head. 8 times 4 is 32. I'm going to put my 2 down and carry my 3. 8 times 2 is 16 plus 3 is 19. So that's 192. All right, and now I have 6 minus 2, and that's 4, and I need to divide those 2. So off to the side again, I'm going to divide 192 divided by 4. So I know that 4 can go into 192 at least 10 times, but really it can go in a lot more than that. So 4 times 10 is 40. And 40 seems like it can go into 192 at least 40 times. So I'm going to do 40. You could always do 10, 10, 10, 10, and keep going down until you get your answer. That's fine. But if you feel comfortable enough to try a bigger number at first, go ahead and do that. 4 times 4 is 16, and then I add a 0, so that's 160. See how I got a large number and now the problem's going to be a lot shorter for me. 2 minus 0 is 2. 9 minus 6 is 3. And 4 can go into 32 8 times. 4 times 8 is 32. Subtract, and I have no remainder. So my answer is 48. So that means that the answer to Stephen's problem is 48. And I'm going to write his name next to it so I remember whose is whose. All right, so next one is Frankie. Frankie has brackets and parentheses, so I'm going to be sure to write those out correctly. Now he's multiplying his answer by 8, so that could get him a large number. We'll have to wait and see. All right, 24 minus 6 is 18. And then I'm going to bring down my brackets. See, I brought my bracket down, my division sign, my 2, and my other bracket. And then I'm going to bring down the times 8. 18 divided by 2 is 9. And then I'm going to bring down my multiplied by 8. And 9 times 8 is 72. So far, Frankie has beaten Stephen. But now we have to see how the other 2 did. All right, Seth has 24 times 8 divided by 2 minus 6. All right, so I'm going to start with 8 divided by 2 because that's in parentheses, and that is 4. I'm going to bring down the rest of my problem. Oops. All right, so now I have 24 times 4 minus 6. So I'm going to figure out what is 24 times 4. Off to the side. 4 times 4 is 16. Carry the 1. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 96. And 96 minus 6 is 90. That means Seth is now in the lead. So we just have to see how Ryan did. Ryan came up with 8 times 6 in parentheses minus 24 divided by 2. Okay, so 8 times 6 is 48. And since we have 2 sets of parentheses, you really can do them both at the same time. If you feel more comfortable bringing the whole problem down and then continuing as normal, that's totally fine. But since they're both in parentheses, I can do them at the same time. 24 divided by 2 is 12. and I put my subtraction sign in between. 48 minus 12, I'm going to line that up next to my problem to make sure that I get it correct. 8 minus 2 is 6, 4 minus 1 is 3, so I know that Ryan's answer was 36, and he probably came in last. So it's obvious here that Seth with 90 was the winner of the game, so the answer is C. All right, so remember, go back, rewind, check out problems that you may have had a hard time understanding, get a second explanation on it, and don't overthink it. You guys are going to do great. Good luck.